Hey everybody, and welcome back to Jordan's Journeys YouTube channel. I'm Jordan Thorpe, and I'm a life coach, author, speaker, and I'm so glad to be back doing another video. It's been some time, but today is going to be a good video because the title of this message is called The Dream Killers. And I'm so excited to dive into it because as God continues to elevate us and mold us, it's important that you understand when He gives you vision how to process that vision and what you need to do with that vision. Because sometimes the dream killers are not the outside people or not your haters, but their friends and their families. It's most of the time the people closest to you. So I want to share a story, and this story comes from the Old Testament. And some of you may have heard the story, but some of you may have not. And it's the story of Joseph. Now, if you have not heard the story of Joseph, I'm going to give you a quick recap. So Joseph was the youngest of his brothers, and he was also the favorite of the fathers. The father gave Joseph a bright colored coat to recognize him as kind of significant chosen one. The brothers were jealous that Joseph was the favorite, and they plotted to kill him, and they ended up actually selling him off to one of the assistants of the king at the time of Egypt. So they sell their brother off, um, and but before they sell him off, Joseph and his brothers, they would be in the field, and Joseph would say, I had a dream that my plants were growing and your plants were bowing down to me. And his brothers were saying, who do you think you are? Like, they were just jealous and envious of him. And Joseph kept coming back and telling them his dreams. And he's like, I'm just so excited. And he's like, I had another dream and another dream. And they're just getting more jealous and more jealous. And it's like, Joseph, shut up. They do not like you. But it's a prime example of sometimes God gives us vision, and we're just so excited. We're so excited. It's like you want to tell everybody because it's finally like you can see clearly. You know where you're going, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful feeling. But when God gives you a vision, it's important that you keep it to yourself. And I know that sounds kind of redundant. It kind of sounds standoffish, but you see, everyone is not going to understand the vision that God has given you, because sometimes you can visualize something and it's just so big because of when it's a God-given vision, it's usually it's big and you can't do it by yourself. So people are just looking at you now and your now circumstance. So when you're telling them something, like you see something that's just could be great, everyone's not going to understand that. And it's usually the people closest to you, like friends, families, mothers, siblings, cousins. And you have to not really take that personal, like it's okay. You should come with the understanding, like everyone is not going to understand your vision, and it will be the closest people to you that are the dream killers, that are going to be telling you to stay, don't go. Why do you need to do that? Because they are telling you what's best for them and not necessarily what's best for you or what God is telling you to do. So it's important that you understand that you have to be able to protect your vision. It's like your baby. It's like you're birthing something. It's your baby. You have to protect it from the world. You don't want to bombard it with negativity and other people's insecurities and their thoughts. You don't need that. You want to be able to just be able to hear God clearly and be directed by God daily and be led by Him. So I have 3 things to help you just protect your dream from the dream killers. Okay, number 1 is write it down, because when God gives you a vision, sometimes it's not going to manifest until 10, 20, 30 years later. right? So you want to be able to remember what God told you and be able to look back on it and reflect at it. Reflect. Joseph did not, his vision didn't come to pass. It was almost 10 years later. You know, he was sold, he was in jail. So a lot of things happen in Joseph's life, and it's those moments, and those dark moments, that you're going to need to remember what God told you, because it's all a part of the plan. Because even though Joseph was in jail, and even when he came out of jail, and the promise that God had told him came to pass, when his brothers came and were bowing down to him because he was somebody of importance in Egypt, he wasn't like, I told y'all were going. He wasn't petty. He was like, there is no need to be angry or have anxiety with me, because it was all a part of God's plan. You selling me was all a part of God's plan for me to get me to where I am. So you have to understand, when people may feel like they need to attack you, they're going to talk about you, but at the end of the day, they cannot affect your destiny. Because when God's hand is on your life, what other people say, what other people do, it doesn't matter. That's why there's no need to be in competition, because when you're being led by God, He's the one who elevates you, and He will excel you when He's ready, on His timing. Because God's timing is perfect timing, and it's not our timing. So we can rest in the fact that everything is working out for our good. Even when his brothers, when Joseph was hated by his brothers, they hated him, they sold him off, he still God worked it out for his good. He still got to his destination, no matter. So what people do don't affect your destiny. So number one is write it down. You have to write it down so you can remember it, because sometimes it doesn't manifest until years and years down the line, and you need to be able to look at that promise when you're in those dark moments. Number two, keep it to yourself until you laid the foundation. And I talk about this in my book, Jordan's Journey, Practical Guide for Finding Self and Purpose. It's a shameless plug, but I talk about this in my book. You want to keep it to yourself until you lay the foundation, because as I mentioned before, people are not going to understand your vision, because it's not their vision, it's your vision. So don't expect everyone to support you. Everyone more than likely is not going to support you, because people can't support what they cannot see. It's just as simple as that. They're not going to support what they cannot see. And that is okay. You cannot take that personal. That's human nature. It's okay. So you want to be able to keep it to yourself until you lay the foundation, because you do not want to have your vision bogged down with the thoughts and opinions of other people, because now it becomes their vision, and they may not mean you any harm, but it's like you want to stay focused on what God is telling you to do, and not what's best for the people who are closest to you and what they're trying to tell you to do. Because a lot of times, if you're not careful, people will tell you, give you advice based on what's best for them, based on what's convenient for them. And you don't need that. You want to make sure you have a firm foundation, you have a clear understanding and a clear strategy of what God is calling you to do. And then He will send people to help you. That's the thing. God will send people to help you bring the vision for intuition, because 9 times out of 10, when God gives you a vision and a purpose, it's never about you. It's about helping other people. It's about building His kingdom and giving Him the glory. So it's actually His vision. You're just the manager of it. So He will bring people to help you bring it to life. So keep it to yourself until the time is right, and He will bring people to help you to move it forward. And lastly, when God's hand is on your life, no human can stop what God has for you. So there is no need to compare. When you compare your life to others, or when you are in people bondage and you're so concerned about what people think about you, it's actually a disservice to yourself, because you're actually belittling what God has for you, because you're comparing it to somebody else. When God's hand is on your life, there is no need to compare. So don't be afraid to take those moments to wait on God for confirmation and to get a clear strategy and to be confident in what He's told you and to lay that foundation, because it's not easy. And you are going to need to have the vision written down. You're going to need to have a strong foundation. And you're going to need to know and be clear on what God has told you in those dark moments. So I say all this to say that as you're growing and as you're evolving in Christ, remember that the dream killers are more than likely the people who are closest to you. And that should be expected. That should be expected. So, the 3 things, I'm going to say them again. Number 1 is write the vision down. Write it down. Get a journal. Get a notebook. Write when God speaks to you, when you have an idea, write it down. Number 2, you want to be able to understand where God is taking you. So you need to have that firm foundation and keep it to yourself. You have to lay the foundation, keep it to yourself. Number 3, when God's hand is on your life, there is nothing that anybody can say, anybody can do to stop you from getting to where God is taking you. And as a reminder, make sure you guys read the story of Joseph. Okay, that's all I have for now, and I will be back with another video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Bye.